I was explaining One Piece to my mom who knows absolutely nothing about the show. And the way she was saying One Piece without any emphasis or inflection in her voice, as opposed to someone who's watched hundreds if not thousands of hours. One Piece, One Piece, One Piece, One Piece, made me think of the title in its most literal sense. And that's all it took to send me down a rabbit hole so complex but interesting, and I haven't stopped thinking about it for weeks. And the crazy part is, the theory that I came up with doesn't not make sense. So now I gotta share it. Why can't Luffy be the One Piece? Or better yet, why can't Luffy be the One Piece that unlocks the true treasure? What if this entire story since leaving East Blue has been leading up to Luffy not just finding the One Piece, but being the One Piece missing, or should I say, the missing One Piece? Okay, hold on, let me explain. The name One Piece sounds like it's the final part of a puzzle, something that is made of a collection of pieces. Like something is incomplete without that one piece. And what if Luffy is the missing piece? Not metaphorically, but literally. Whether he is the One Piece or just the key that activates it, if this outlandish theory would be true, even the title screen of the show might have been hiding the truth in plain sight all along. I mean, hell, if you take Luffy's silhouette out of the One Piece logo, it's literally one piece that's missing out of the One Piece logo, where he fits in perfectly. And if the One Piece isn't Luffy directly, which might seem unlikely, the more likely option is that this journey that he's been on, this whole anime, has been preparing him to unlock his full potential to unlock the One Piece. Trust me, I'm gonna take you on the journey my brain neurons took me on while I was One Piece theorizing at 4 in the morning. And I bet you it sounds a lot closer to Oda's writing style than you may think. I know the theory sounds wild, but in this video, I'm gonna support it the best I can by breaking down each character that has seen the treasure and also seen Luffy, give my actual in and out details of the theory and why it fits so well, and then lastly, even challenge my own theory with legit counterpoints that I want y'all to counter argue, if that makes sense. And plus, as a cherry on the top, I saved a little bonus theory that could connect the Void Sentry just a little bit more. So come with me as I try to answer a question that might change how you see this entire series. Why can't Luffy be the One Piece? Hey, what's up y'all? Welcome to The Bread Show, a place where we give our anime and gaming opinions while doing a little bit of animated and gaming ourselves. And at the end of our massive One Piece series video that I made, I hinted that I kind of am getting a feel on what I think or who I think the One Piece is, and that's what I'm gonna get into in this video. So I'm gonna take y'all through a lot, but bear with me. Hopefully by the end of this video, I can convince you to hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 10,000. It will really help the channel out a lot. And also consider subscribing so that this theory can get to as many people as possible and they could either agree with it or disagree with it totally. And then leave a comment on what you think the One Piece is, or who you think the One Piece is, or where do you think the One Piece is, or whatever. Let's get straight into this. I figured the best place to start when speculating on what the One Piece is to start with the people who actually seen it. Crocus, who hasn't said a damn word about it, and Rayleigh. Shanks and Buggy never went because Buggy got sick. Shanks was watching over him. Cat Viper and Dude Dogstorm never actually went to Laugh-Tale with Goldie Roger, even though they were sailing with him. Goldie Roger needed Odin to reach Laugh-Tale, which they successfully did, but then Odin died in Wano. And then Roger fell ill with a terminal illness and eventually gave himself up to the world government. And we don't know everybody on Goldie Roger's crew just yet. There's a mystery man with luscious black hair that's seen everything, but we don't know if he's dead or alive. But something else that we do know is that Whitebeard knows the One Piece is real solely based off faith in Roger's words. And remember, Whitebeard said that the will of Roger will be inherited by someone, and when someone finds the One Piece treasure, it'll turn the whole world into chaos. But it would take some actual knowledge of what the One Piece is to figure that out. And then also, why didn't the world turn into chaos when Roger found the One Piece? Why have people who have seen the One Piece seem so unbothered, but everyone who hasn't seen it is hell-bent on finding it? Everybody who reached Laugh-Tale from Roger's crew just drifted away and apart from each other. They didn't act on anything they gained, anything they learned, anything that they experienced. Back in Sabaody Archipelago, I questioned why Rayleigh put his neck out on the line for Luffy so hard like he did. Like, he saved his life, he saved his crew, and then dedicated the next few years of his life to train him for a few years. But if Rayleigh saw something unique in Luffy's existence rather than just solely doing all that stuff because he reminded him of Roger, and if Rayleigh knew that it was his role to bring Luffy up to that potential, the whole Rayleigh and Luffy dynamic and how strong it would be a direct result of how much Rayleigh knows about the One Piece. And remember that fact for later, I'm still setting up. One thing Roger said is that he found the One Piece too early. So that, and a lot of other things, makes it so that we know the One Piece isn't just a normal treasure. It's reliant on time in one way or another. And it just so happens that the birth of a special human being having something to do with the One Piece would also be reliant on time. And that might be what led Roger to incite the Great Pirate Era upon his death in Logtown, knowing that somebody was out there, but he couldn't necessarily fulfill the prophecy or help because he was terminally ill. And Roger didn't have time anyway, so he just gave himself to the government and left it to the next generation. So the world wasn't in chaos when Roger found the One Piece, but it will be when the next person after him finds the One Piece. So the real reason why Roger's crew is so nonchalant about the One Piece and what it means and what it is and what they experience is because they know for a fact that it's the next generation's problem anyways, and none of them will be alive to see it or youthful enough to do anything about it. And I guess they don't want to directly influence it by telling people. I don't know. I don't know that part exactly, but you get my point.
I'm certain it's telling the truth. Soon a great person will be born, and one day he'll even surpass us. Perhaps we were a bit before our time.
I do wonder who will find the One Piece in the end.
So that brings me to my main point. The One Piece is the missing piece, and I think the missing piece is Luffy. I know me saying that I think that Luffy is the One Piece sounds crazy, but I have a way of wrapping it all up that eliminates plot holes and wraps up pretty nicely, actually. So let's set it up a little bit more. Luffy may not be Joyboy, but he's directly tied to Joyboy, and I think it's safe to say that he's a Joyboy reincarnation. Zunisha said that Joyboy returned after Luffy awakened his Gear 5 Devil Fruit in Wano. And something we find out in Egghead is that Joyboy was the one in the world government 20 versus 1. Joyboy will likely directly be tied to Laugh Tale, and the reason why I'm saying that is because of the connections between Joy and Laughter. Laughter being Roger's name for Laugh Tale because that's what they did when they were at Laugh Tale. They laughed the whole time. And Joy being directly related to Joyboy being so significant to the One Piece story and how Luffy, and maybe even Roger, is a reincarnation of Joyboy. We've seen Joyboy, Nika, Shanks, Odin, the Will of D, and Goldie Roger's inherited will being given to Luffy for him to carry out. This whole idea that the One Piece is something you become or ignite with your inherited will is something that Oda would definitely do. And here's my proof for that before I give the details of the theory. If One Piece had one central theme, it would definitely be inherited wills. We've seen the main character, of course, he inherits a lot of wills, as I listed before, but each individual Straw Hat and other important characters for that matter have their own inherited wills, if not by one person, then multiple people. Robin inherits the will of O'Hara and her mom. Usopp inherits the will of Yasopp. Frankie and Tom. Brooke and Laboon. Chopper with Dr. Kureha and Dr. Haralook. Jinbei inherits Fisher Tiger's will. Nami, I'd say, inherits her sister and her mom's will, but I think in my eyes, she also inherited Luffy's will. Zoro inherits Kuina's will, and Sanji inherits his will from Zeph and his mother. All that to say, if the One Piece has to do with inherited will, that would definitely tie in with the main original theme of the show, the consistent theme of this whole show. And if Luffy, with all of his inherited wills from all of his different people, was the missing key, that's why Roger could just laugh without turning the world upside down. So now, let's get to the actual details of what I'm thinking. I believe Luffy is the key that activates the One Piece, and his inherited wills, with an S, plural, is what gives the actual One Piece meaning, essentially activating it. I think Buggy is going to get to Laugh Tale first, and he's gonna get to the One Piece, but he won't be able to use it, won't be able to activate it, and then he'll get pissed. I also think in an all-out war, Shanks and Blackbeard are going to fight each other, and Shanks is going to lose. Luffy is going to avenge Shanks and defeat Blackbeard. And then Shanks witnesses Luffy use the One Piece and defeat Emu and the whole world government. With all that being said, that means that I think that the One Piece is some sort of weapon that could be used against the government. A weapon that only a Joyboy incarnate with Gear 5 and the Straw Hat and all the inherited wheels could use, which Luffy would be. In terms of what I think the actual One Piece is, I think it'll be something silly, something that will make you laugh if you looked at it. Like a situation where it's like, oh, we came all this way for a children's toy or a clown nose or like a toy horse or something like that. And I think that is what triggered Roger and all of the Roger pirates to laugh so hysterically while they were there. But in all reality, when you add it to Luffy's individual and unique circumstances, it becomes an unstoppable weapon. And then after that, Luffy will fulfill whatever his secret dream was, and that only Sabo, Ace, and the Straw Hats know. And by the way, I don't think that that secret dream is gonna take like 500 episodes. I hear so many people talk about it, and it makes it seem like there's gonna be a whole nother One Piece show. I don't think it's gonna be that type of dream. In my eyes, the way he explained it, the way I've seen it, I thought it was only gonna be a few episodes, maybe at max. And then y'all know that I have a long-standing theory that Luffy will not be with us at the end of this show, and I think that this theory allows for that. I think after Luffy finds the One Piece and fulfills whatever his dream is, there will be nothing left for him to do. I think he's gonna ride off in the sunset. Maybe he dies, maybe he joins the gods, but I don't think he'll just go back to East Blue and just live a normal life. I definitely don't think that's the case. I think Luffy's story will end shortly after finding the One Piece. When figuring out what Luffy's secret dream is, we all tend to remember the Straw Hat's reaction, being confused and kind of scared and kind of perplexed. But Sabo and Ace's reaction when Luffy said it was that it made them laugh, but it also made them cry, which complicates my what his actual dream is. But hey, that's a whole nother video idea, I guess. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. This theory doesn't solve the whole world is sinking and the water level is rising problem, but it'll tie into it somehow. Like, I don't know, maybe Emu's making the world rise and defeating it would stop the sea level from rising. Or maybe the water level rising is just a punishment of the gods. So if you destroy the gods, then the water level won't rise anymore. I don't know, I guess. And then, of course, there's other connections to be made that aren't super strong, like Roger laughed at Laugh-Tale because the One Piece made them laugh. Roger and Luffy's inherited will and their personalities have, like, they have personalities that make people laugh. I just think that all of these things that I mentioned are too related to be totally disconnected from each other. I think that this theory closely fits Oda's writing style and tying in comedy into the main plot. And I think all of those results for Buggy, Shanks, Blackbeard, and Luffy, the 4 people left to look for the One Piece, those are realistic ways that their character arcs would end. Satisfying ways even. So now that I've given you the details of this theory, this brings up the title of the video. Why can't Luffy be the One Piece? We're gonna seriously come up with counter arguments to my argument before I get way too ahead of myself. With the biggest counter argument I have against my argument, I saved for last. First, Luffy never wanted to play the hero. That's something that's been consistent with him since the beginning, and this theory would directly put him in the place of the hero. Although, even though he's never wanted to be a hero, he's constantly accidentally put himself in the position where he is the hero. 2, Luffy's whole character is about being free, so this theory would tie a super serious responsibility on him to save the world in a way that makes him not as free as he thinks he is because he's tied down by this super huge responsibility, thus making him unknowingly not as free as he thinks. 3, if the One Piece is tied to Luffy personally, then this would make Roger's journey a lot less meaningful. The whole journey that he took with Duke Dog Storm, Cat Viper, and all the people we mentioned, Odin, all of those people, it would have just resulted in waiting for Luffy. Like, that's what it would have culminated in. Right place, wrong time. Although you could argue that that's how it would have culminated anyways. 4, I don't know if the One Piece itself will be a weapon, because a weaponized One Piece would undermine the actual ancient weapons in the show, one of which is already a person. But the biggest flaw in my argument, in my opinion, is this. For anyone who's seen the Naruto versus Neji fight in Naruto Chunin exams, think of it this way. The complete opposite of inheriting a will and achieving your goal through relentless pursuit of adventure is genetically or situationally inheriting the key to whatever your goals were, which is what the Luffy is the One Piece would imply. So yeah, the complete opposite of inheriting a will and going on a journey and having your goals is being born with the ability to achieve your goals anyways, which is something that my theory could imply. If I were arguing my counter argument and I'm having an argument with myself. This is ridiculous. But if I were to go fully insane and argue my argument for my argument, I would say that's why it's necessary that rarely trained Luffy, like I said before, he had to reach that potential. And even though he was born with a lot of the things he needed, he wasn't born with everything he needed. That's why he had to go on this long journey to eventually get to where he needed to be. And yeah, he wouldn't have been able to find the One Piece and unlock it in East Blue, but after training Gear 4, Gear 5, and all them, then he can unlock it at the end of the show, whenever that's gonna be. I think One Piece is gonna be another 500 episodes. I think 500 episodes. But if the One Piece isn't Luffy, what else could it possibly be? There's no way to end One Piece in a satisfying way. It's just going on for too long, and there's too many loose ends that need to be tied up for everyone to be satisfied. I mean, even just the little things like Dr. Hogback, he escaped Thriller Bark. I thought we would see him again. We never saw him again. Enel is still on the moon. Ivankov still hasn't said the secret that they know about Crocodile. And what are going to be the actual repercussions of Luffy's injections from Ivankov? What are going to be the actual repercussions of Zoro versus Sanji telling him to kill him or whatever? This story's own internal stories have gotten so out of hand that no mere man can wrap them up with no mysteries and leaving everybody satisfied. There's just no way that that's gonna happen. There's no possible way. And me personally, I am okay with that. We just live in a day and age where apparently the Attack on Titan ending, Jujutsu Kaisen ending, Demon Slayer ending was bad, Death Note ending was bad, Code Geass ending was bad, Vinland Saga Season 2 was bad. And as a matter of fact, we're running out of animes that could produce 2 good seasons in a row in general, according to this anime community that we've got. So I am fully prepared for a lot of people, mostly manga readers, to tell people mid-show whenever One Piece does end that it's not gonna end and the ending was not satisfying and the One Piece makes no sense and what the actual One Piece is, that doesn't make any sense. I'm prepared for that. But me personally, I have full faith in Oda to pull this whole thing off and make the whole thing make sense because he's already made so many micro endings to so many other micro stories. There's no way he's just gonna mess this big ending up. And to be in our positions where we could just speculate and theorize on how this is gonna end and what's gonna happen, it's really fun to do. But after all this speculation and mental gymnastics that I had to do, it made me realize one thing, and that's I would hate to have Oda's job at the end of all of this, because the amount of time it took to make up this theory and escape all the retcons and plot holes was crazy. So I know he's got a crazy job on his hands. And then he's got to make it entertaining for the new age fans, because the new age anime fans don't like anything. So yeah, Oda's definitely got his work cut out for him, but us, we could just speculate, you know what I'm saying? That's a good part about what we do. But if you don't agree with my theory at all, what do you think the One Piece is? And if you agree, thanks. Either way, comment down below. The One Piece could just be a funny message from Joyboy. The One Piece could just be a hilarious retelling of the story of the world. And the bonus theory that I have, and I kind of alluded to, is that Joyboy and everybody that I believe is a Joyboy reincarnate is a reincarnation of Nika. So it goes Nika, Joyboy, then Roger, maybe. We'll see how this goes. And then Luffy. Because while watching and all this, there was a lot of parallels between Joyboy and Nika and Luffy, but they're not the same people. That was kind of confusing. So I'm just thinking that Nika was the original. Joyboy came after him. He was the man walking around in Fishman Island and all that stuff. And then Luffy came after both of them. So the anime is definitely gonna have to go into Nika's origin story, Joyboy's origin story, and then wrap up Luffy's story. So yeah, that's just a little bonus theory I have to understand the Void Century and the history of the world a lot better. Hopefully by this time, I have convinced you to hit that subscribe button. It would really help the channel a lot. Please like the video. Please comment if you enjoyed. Comment your thoughts on the One Piece. I have been watching Dandadan. I've been watching Frieren. I've been watching a couple other things. I am taking suggestions. I am watching a whole bunch of animes that I will make videos on. There will be a Dandadan video. There will be a Frieren video. There will be all of these videos. There will be a Hunter x Hunter video. I'm working on all of these videos. I'm working on more One Piece videos next. Man, we got a lot coming. But it's a lot of good, just like One Piece. So yeah, please like the video. Please subscribe. And comment on what you want to see next. And yeah, I don't have much else to say outside of that. Spread love, give inspiration in all you do, and peace out.
Welcome to the Crash Show. Take 2.